I genuinely believe making a gaming laptop as a manufacturer is a hard job. It's difficult to keep that intricate balance between price and performance. One such brand that's up for the challenge though is Gigabyte with their G6X machine. It tries to fill the best of both worlds. Rocking a brand new 2024 configuration, we've got Intel's i7-13650HX processor, 32 gigabytes of speedy DDR5 memory. We've also got RTX4060 graphics with 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Additionally, we have a nice large 1TB SSD pre-installed, and we get Wi-Fi 6E plus Bluetooth 5.3 connectivity combined with a nice large 16-inch display. Now, this laptop has a lot of stuff going for it, and we're going to go through all of it in this totally comprehensive review. So let's see what you guys think of the brand new G6X. Gigabyte likes to keep things nice and simple for the packaging, so you get a pretty generic looking cardboard box over here. Inside, behind some more protective packaging, here it is, the G6X in the flesh, but more on that in a quick minute. You also get a nice large 180 watt charging adapter, which is expected for a gaming machine. You also have the wall-mounted charging cable piece, and then finally you have this paper envelope here inside, which is the quick start guide, warranty, and regulation information. In terms of design elements, the G6X looks very bulky and traditional. Gigabyte really hasn't invested too much time on the aesthetics department, and from a utilitarian perspective, that's totally fine, but it's not going to look like the sleekest gaming laptop out there. Now, the color choice here is gunmetal gray, though it looks more black than gunmetal grayish in my opinion. You do have a approximate weight of 5.6 pounds, which makes sense given this is a 16-inch gaming machine. The laptop consists primarily of a plastic build, though the top half does have a aluminum finishing. So again, starting with the top side, like I mentioned, it's a metallic finishing over here. You have some subtle, actually I would say some more than subtle design elements that definitely give this a gaming laptop vibe, some basic branding by Gigabyte, and it is a bit of a fingerprint magnet, but that's pretty much everything. I/O diversity is pretty fair on this machine, so on one side you have a USB-A super speed port and the headphone jack. On the other side you'll find one more USB-A super speed port, a Type-C port with power delivery. On the rear side, you have a RJ45 port or Ethernet jack, a HDMI 2.1 port, the DC charging port itself, and also another Type-C port, this one with DisplayPort 1.4 functionality. So like I mentioned, plenty of connectivity options here. The bottom side of this laptop presents you with a ton of air intake vents. You can kind of see the dual fan setup as well as the rest of the cooling mechanism right here, which is pretty cool. Yes, the lid is removable because certain parts are upgradable, and also you'll notice on either corner you have a speaker grill, so it is a bottom firing setup. When you unfold this laptop, you're presented with a pretty standard plastic inner chassis, though you get a ton of palm rest space thanks to the 16-inch form factor. What's really interesting here is that despite having a plastic surface finish, the trackpad feels really tactile and surprisingly has a very limited amount of flex, something that I really wasn't expecting, and it is a pleasantly good thing. The keyboard here is pretty straight to the point and functional, so you've got nice large keycaps with easy to read font sizes. The layout is also pretty straightforward and nice. Additionally, you do have the inclusion of a full-size 10 keypad, and also the keyboard is fully backlit with RGB settings. I believe you have 15 distinct colors to choose from. Now, it's worth noting as far as the actual typing quality goes, it's not bad, but it's not great either. You do have some pretty wobbly keycaps here, and the typing isn't all that tactile. While again, it's not a bad experience, it kind of falls short when compared to the likes of what HP and Lenovo have to offer, for example. Gigabyte has opted to use a single tier hinge mechanism, which surprisingly is quite durable. There's not a lot of wobble. Unfortunately though, you don't get a full 180-degree tilt. Now, display fitting does have a full plastic encasing, which gives it a slightly more bulkier look, so you have a moderately thick chin at the bottom with some basic branding. The bezels are narrow enough, but again, thanks to that fat encasing, definitely are noticeable. And then at the top, you have a relatively thin forehead, at the center of which you will find a run-of-the-mill 720p webcam. It's nothing really to write home about, but I'm glad they included one nonetheless. The display here isn't going to win any nominations or turn out to be the best of the best. However, I do feel like Gigabyte has tried to put an emphasis on the more gaming-friendly attributes by sacrificing some of the other elements. For example, you have a nice large 16-inch display over here with a 1920 by 1200 resolution, which actually gives you a comfortable 16:10 aspect ratio. You also get a super snappy 165Hz refresh rate, which is pleasant to the eyes. Now, peak brightness kind of falls short in my opinion at 300 nits, which means that while it's bright enough for most indoor settings, if you are using it in a very bright room, you might find glare to be slightly on the more overcoming side. Now, as far as color quality goes, that's definitely an area where this laptop takes a hit. With a 45% NTSC rating, this laptop is not recommended for color-sensitive activities like photo or video editing. A quick recap of the specs on this machine. So we've got Intel's i7-13650HX processor combined with 32 gigabytes of speedy DDR5 memory. We also have RTX4060 graphics with 8 gigabytes of VRAM. These are some pretty powerful hardware specs, which means day-to-day activities like surfing the web, watching videos, or just doing some basic Excel crunching are obviously going to be super fast and speedy tasks. More demanding activities like full-out programming on programs like Python with complex queries are totally possible and an absolute breeze for this machine thanks to the ample amount of system memory. More so, demanding activities like 3D level studio animations and rendering are also totally possible, again thanks to a powerful processor and GPU specifications. Even the most demanding of activities like multi-layer 10-bit video editing on programs like DaVinci Resolve was for the most part a breeze for this machine. Now there was the occasional frame drop when you stack more than 3 layers, but that is expected with even the most powerful of machines, and generally speaking you'll have a pretty smooth workflow again thanks to the combination of generous RAM and system performance. Let's talk gaming performance. After all, that's probably the reason you're considering the machine in the first place, right? So games like Fortnite, for example, which have a pretty mainstream optimization, are able to run well above 120 frames per second at the highest setting with sustained performance at the native resolution. Same thing with games like Doom Eternal that keep well above 100 FPS at high settings and definitely show that this machine is more than capable. You'll also be happy to know more demanding games like Cyberpunk 2077, for example, were managing about 71 FPS on average, which is more or less expected performance with the RTX4060, and then games like Counter-Strike Go can hit all the way up to 150 plus frames per second, even at the highest settings, thanks to a low workload. Generally speaking, this is a great gaming laptop, and having that 165Hz display means you can actually enjoy those high FPS rates. For those of you who are interested in system upgradability, rejoice, you've got plenty of options here. So as far as memory is concerned, you've got 2 DDR5 sodium slots over here, which are preoccupied but can be maxed out at 64 gigabytes. You also have 2 M.2 slots over here, which can be also maxed out at 4 terabytes. Additionally, the connectivity module is also M.2 based, so that can be upgraded for Wi-Fi 7 down the road. Remember when I said that Gigabyte went for a pure utilitarian design? Well, that approach does have certain payoffs. Thermals is one such example. Under unrealistic peak loads, this laptop hit a maximum surface temp of just around 44 degrees Celsius. But more realistic sustained loads will yield you around 40 degrees Celsius, which is relatively cool for a gaming machine. Fan noise can get a little loud with a maximum noise level of about 57 decibels, but that's well within gaming territory for a dual fan setup machine over here. You've got a medium-sized 73 watt-hour battery over here. Realistically, you can expect about 4 hours of runtime with general productivity, with that number dramatically decreasing with more intense activities like gaming. Now, as far as speaker quality is concerned, it's a bottom-firing stereo setup, and I'll be honest guys, it definitely gets loud, but there is distortion at higher volume levels, and the depth is fairly limited, but it's more or less in line with a laptop of this class category. Here's a quick sound test for reference. I feel like I'm all on my own, and some days it gets worse, and the memories hurt, but I hope that one day I let go. I know I get mad, too mad, and I don't want to do that. It hurts bad and I hate. With a price tag of $1,350 US, the Gigabyte G6X kind of positions itself between entry-level and mid-range tier as far as gaming laptops go, and in return you definitely get your fair share of specifications: a powerful processor, a decent amount of DDR5 memory, combined with a modestly powerful RTX4060 GPU. All of these are perfect for running most modern-day games at relatively high frames per second, and thanks to a snappy 165Hz refresh rate, you'll always be able to utilize the most out of your FPS. Now with that said, the laptop does make certain compromises to keep at the price point. For example, the build quality isn't going to feel very premium, it's mostly a plastic build, and also you'll find that the laptop display makes certain compromises. For example, the brightness level as well as the color quality are both questionable at best. However, generally speaking, if you're looking at this from a value proposition and want a laptop that can run most modern day games and even perform high demanding activities with good performance, the G6X is a fantastic option and presents itself as a more value oriented gaming laptop. Let me know what you think of this machine. If you're interested in purchasing one, I have links below to help you navigate to the right site and the right retailer. As always, if you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing to this channel and liking this video. It genuinely helps me grow. Catch you in the next one.